Hi, guys. Today I will be talking with you about green funeralization. So, for this project, I have chosen to do my presentation on greener funeralization and embalming. This is because eco friendly or green funeral options are growing in popularity every year. Many people believe that they can just be put into a tree, but they don't really understand the certain procedures that have to be followed in order for that wish to actually happen. So, during this presentation, you will learn how embalming solution directly affects the Earth's environment, the benefits and negatives of eco-friendly embalming, the history of green embalming, and eco-friendly funeral services as a whole. My thesis for this project is eco friendly funeralization grows in popularity yearly. Therefore, professionals should start gaining knowledge about this topic so they can capitalize on their revenue as this trend continues to advance. So, let's first talk about the benefits of green funeralization. Green funeralization has many advantages that help in many ways. For example, it helps with conservation of natural resources, reduces the carbon emission rates, provides more protection of workers' health, and aids in restoration slash preservation of habitat. These are just some of the benefits that can be introduced if funeral homes apply more green funeral techniques to their service offerings. Any new idea adopted into practice can come with advantages. However, negatives are also something that must be considered as well. So let's take a look at that. Disadvantages are common in everything new applied to a business, so funeral homes should be aware of all aspects before offering green burials as one of their services. Many traditional cemeteries don't permit green funerals, or they may have a small designated area for green burials that may be apart from family members next to whom they hope to be buried. A lot of families aren't aware of this before previously thinking they could do a green funeral. So, this could be a really big problem for a lot of the loved ones who thought that they could be able to do this but didn't have the previous knowledge. If they opt for a green burial, their loved one may have to be buried in a private land or in a special green cemetery. Next thing is tricky arrangements. If a family requests no embalming, funeral directors will have to perform very quickly to get their loved one buried before the decomposition process begins. Another thing that could cause problems is natural resources used as headstones. Younger generations may have a hard time honoring their loved ones due to natural resources being used as markers. Many people choose to use wildflowers, trees, or rocks to mark their loved ones at burial sites. However, it will be hard to find them as the years go on. This can cause a lot of problems for loved ones later on in generations to come. Another negative that could present itself is confusion of green burial trends. A lot of people believe that they can just be cremated and put into a tree. However, cremation is technically not environmentally friendly. Cremation involves vaporization of body chemicals. So, a family's plan may not actually be considered the green burial they thought that they were doing originally. So, it's your job as the funeral director to educate them of that fact. Next thing we're going to talk about is the history of green funeralization. Green funeralization can't clearly be determined on a timeline. This is because there's no way of knowing when and where the first burial took place because of the act of burying the dead began long before written language. However, archaeologists and anthropologists have discovered numerous burial sites that were first dug tens of thousands of years ago. And this is from Green Cremation, Texas. People didn't keep record of who died back then like we do today. Therefore, it is almost impossible to get a definite answer on the complete history of green burial. However, the first believed natural burial discovery is a title up for debate between two different archaeologist discoveries. One of the discoveries is actually in the Achapruca Mountains of Spain, and the other discovery was in Rising Star Cave System. Let's take a look at that. So, with the Achapruca Mountains of Spain, in the 1980s, a cave was discovered with at least 28 Sima humans' bodies. The bodies were estimated to be around 430,000 years old, so quite old. Some think the bodies were disposed of into the cave after a violent end, but others believe the bodies got washed up there after a flood. The other discovery that is up for debate as the first natural burial is the Rising Star Cave System. Now, this one was found in 2013 and the first of the Homo naldi skeletons kind that was ever discovered. Around 4 bodies were discovered in the cave, however, it's still not decided on if that cave was actually a burial site. Despite this, the Rising Star Cave is recognized as the most documented discovery of a homin species in this state. So here we have the Homo naldis and the Sima homins. Each species is a former, older generation species, so obviously they're going to look a little bit different than as we do now, because most people believe that, we advanced from gorillas, so this is what they predicted that they look like back then. All right, now let's look at how embalming solution affects the environment. One of the main reasons people prefer greener embalming is because of the fact that it requires no embalming. An online article entitled Environmental Impacts of Funerals, Burial vs. Cremation says embalming fluid is another huge contributor to damaging the environment. As the chemicals are buried in the ground and gradually work their way into the soil and the underground waterways, it's shocking that an average 4-hectare cemetery holds enough embalming fluid to fill a small swimming pool. These chemicals seep into the soil, which can get back into the local water supply and harm wildlife in the area as well. Many people see this as a huge problem and will look to funeral directors for a source to help fix this issue. As a result, funeral directors should educate themselves on the different type of eco-friendly services that they could offer. Let's take a look at some examples of that. So I wanted to show some that typically aren't known. So the first one we're going to look at is mushroom burial suits. There are so many different natural burial options that could be adopted by funeral director businesses. So I wanted to include things that aren't typically mentioned. After burial, a mushroom burial can include a bodysuit that is used. After burial, the mushrooms are specifically trained to devour dead human tissue, which they typically do, thereby recycling our bodies rather than using them to further populate the earth. Many people like this option over embalming and cremation, because of the fact that the mushroom can be a natural disposition method. Many people like this option over embalming and cremation, because of the fact that the mushroom can be a natural disposition method. By doing this service, many people believe they're putting forth a better effort to help decrease their carbon footprint amount left behind after they're already gone. Next, let's look at aquamation, aka water cremation. Deceased are placed in a stainless steel vessel filled with a solution of 95% water and 5% potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide. The vessel is then heated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which causes the body to dissolve. The partial skeleton left at the end is then ground up and given to the loved one. These options are just two of many that funeral directors can choose to learn about and include within their own offered services. As natural burial trends grow, funeral directors should focus on gaining knowledge so they can capitalize on the profit these kinds of services can provide. Many people these days are starting to take action to prevent the amount of waste they leave within their lifetime. Consequent, Consequently, green burial popularity has grown tremendously throughout the years. Every funeral home should recognize this trend and start taking the necessary measures needed to help fulfill the expectations needed to achieve this type of service for their facility. By doing this, they are able to provide a special service that other places may not offer and help increase their good reputation within the community. And these are my sources. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. I hope you learned a little bit. And if you have any questions, I would love to hear them. Thank you again.